Hey guys, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to part 8 of my Music Theory for Producers course. In this video, we're going to take a look at the major and minor circle of fifths, which is a tool that we can use to figure out any major or minor scale. In the last two videos, in 6 and 7, we talked about what I consider the hard way to figure out scales, where you count up in half steps or whole steps to just use a pattern to figure out the scales. That works just fine, but I find this a little bit more efficient as long as you've got a circle of fifths handy. You can either print it out or just memorize it, or you can just go to Google and search up circle of fifths and you'll find a million of them out there. The circle of fifths essentially tells us how many sharps or flats there are in every single key. And it's called the circle of fifths because of the way that the keys are arranged on the circle. So G is a fifth higher than C, D is a fifth higher than G, a fifth higher than D, and so forth. And the same thing goes for the minor circle. Also, you'll find examples of this online where the major and minor circle of fifths are combined into one circle. I personally like to have them on two separate circles, but again, it's just a personal preference. So for instance, like we said in the last two videos, the C major scale has 0 sharps and flats in it, so it's all white keys. The A minor scale has 0 sharps and flats in it because it has zero black keys. It's all white keys. For example, E flat major, I think was one of the ones that we did before, has 3 flats in it. The cool thing about the flats and sharps that are in each key or each scale is that they go in a very specific order. For instance, in the key of F major, there is only 1 flat. The very first flat that it's going to be added to any key is always going to be B. So down here, see how this says order of flats this way? B, E, A, D, G, C, F? That is the order in which flats are added to a scale or to a key. Just like D minor has 1 flat. The only note that is flat in the key of D minor is B flat because it's the very first flat down here. Likewise, when you figure out sharps, you go the opposite direction. So if we take a look at G major, it has 1 sharp in it. The note in G major that is sharped is F, because it goes in the opposite direction, F, C, G, D, A, E, B. A little trick I always use to remember this B, E, A, D, G, C, F order was I just made up a word called bijasif. And bijasif was just a word. I'd write it out on the paper. They'd make us, I was in college, they'd make us write out the major and minor circle of fifths. I probably had to do it on every single quiz I had for, a whole 16-week course. So bijasif helped me to remember the order of flats and order of sharps, but also helped me to remember the order of the notes on the circles. Because if you look at 5 o'clock down here, it starts on B, E, A, D, G, C, F, and then B, E, A, D, G, C again, but they're flatted this time around. There's a couple enharmonic keys down here too. We had talked about enharmonic notes, how say a note can be F sharp, but you can also refer to it as G flat. The bottom 3 keys or scales on each of the circles of fifths have enharmonic keys. So they're keys that are literally identical. Like if you looked at it in piano roll, it's going to look identical. But if you look at, say, G sharp minor and A flat minor on staff paper, they're going to be written completely differently. So they're just enharmonic keys where all 7 notes of the scale are enharmonics. That's what those are. But let's start with an easy one. Let's start with E major. So E major has 4 sharps in it. So the 4 sharps in E major are going to be F, C, G, and D. F, C, G, D. So the trick with this is just start on the note E, play all white keys up to the next E, and then go in and sharp F, C, G, and D, the 4 sharps that are in it. So all I'm going to do is in my piano roll editor here, I've got a step input on. I'm going to find an E on my MIDI controller, and I'm just going to play up all white keys with no black keys until I get to the next E. There we go. Then I'm going to go find F, C, G, and D, because those are the 4 sharps in the reverse order of bijasif. So here is F, here is C, here is, I'm going to press Shift, there you go, F, C, G, and D. I'm holding Shift to select all the notes, those 4, and I'm just going to hit Option up to sharp those notes, because essentially sharping a note is just raising it a half step. So all we did, again, was we took all those white keys starting on E, going up to E, found the 4 sharps based on what the circle of fifths says E major is, F, C, G, and D, highlighted F, C, G, and D, and pulled those 4 notes up a half step. And so we end up with the correct key or the correct scale here. So now we know what notes we need to use in the key or scale of E major. Let's do another one. Let's do another major one, but let's do a major one that has flats in it. So let's do D flat down here. D flat has 5 flats in it. By the way, these enharmonic keys, it's kind of obvious, but in D flat, you're not going to have sharps. So the D flat refers to 5 flats, and C sharp refers to 7 sharps. Over here, B refers to 5 sharps, and 7 flats refers to C flat. So let's do D flat. It has 5 flats in it. So what I'm going to do first is just start on a note that is, well, it's D. There's D. And I'm going to play all white keys all the way up to the next D. There we go. Okay, so that's not right. Doesn't sound like a major scale to me. In the key of D flat, we have 5 flats. So those 5 flats are, in the order of flats here, B, E, A, D, G. B, E, A, D, G. So let's go find those 5 flats. So we have B, E, A, D, because it's the bottom note. And keep in mind, the bottom note and the top note are both going to be D, so we got to select that twice. B, E, A, D, G. Now, since we're flatting these, we're lowering them instead of raising them. So this time I'm going to hold Option and press down to lower all 5 of those notes. And now what I have is the D flat major scale. It's as simple as that. Now, this process may seem like it takes pretty much just the same amount of time as figuring out the whole step, half step pattern process. But at the end of the day, the whole point of doing this is to do it enough with the circle of fifths so that eventually you just memorize the number of sharps or flats in every single key. And I know looking at this chart, it seems daunting, but it's possible. Or at least memorizing the most common keys, the ones on the top of each circle, is something that pretty much all songwriters should know. Like, if someone says E major, I know that there's 4 sharps. If someone says F minor, I know that there's 4 flats. I've played in those keys and I've worked with those keys enough, and I've used the circle of fifths for so long that I've basically memorized every single key in the circle of fifths. I don't even have to use the circles anymore because I've memorized everything. Let's do some minor keys. Let's do F minor. So F minor has 4 flats, and the 4 flats in F minor are B, E, A, D, the first 4. So we'll come down here. We'll start on an F. Again, just playing all white keys. And remember, the 4 flats are B, E, A, D. So I'll select B, E, A, and D. And to flat them, we pull the notes down. So I'm going to hold Option and press down. And we have F minor. There we go. Let's do one more from the minors. Let's do a hard one. Let's do G sharp minor. G sharp minor is 5 sharps. So in piano roll, I'm going to start on G. Whoops, I got one wrong note there. So all white keys going G to G. And then we can go back to our chart here. G sharp minor has 5 sharps in it. The 5 sharps are F, C, G, D, A. Notice that you can only have 7 sharps max and 7 flats max. There's nothing that comes beyond that except for theoretical keys, which those are not really useful at all. So 5 sharps are F, C, G, D, A. F, C, G, D, A. So we have F, we have C, we have G, top and bottom, D, and A. We're sharping these, so I'm going to pull them all up a half step. And we end up with G sharp minor. And there you go. let's take a look at this in the score editor. Notice that it's added some flats and some sharps because the score editor doesn't know what key you're working within. You'd have to select the notes or select all of the notes. And then at least this is just in Logic score editor. Right click and you can say sharps to flats. You can go under accidentals and then you can say sharps to flats or flats to sharps. So basically this, we know this is G sharp minor. So I'm going to say flats to sharps and it's going to respell the whole scale with just sharps. So we've got, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G. The 5 sharps that we pulled up. It shows 6 because the top and bottom note is repeated. They're octaves. So remember in an earlier video, we were talking about some weird enharmonics like C flat. Like what's the point of having C flat when you can just use the note B, Let's try to do a scale where we have one of those weird ones. Let's go ahead and do, let's do one of my favorite keys. E flat minor is one of my absolute favorite keys to write music in. I don't know why. It feels really nice on the fingers when I play it in. And it's got 6 flats to it. So let's do E flat minor. So let's do E flat minor. I'll type it in just the same way as I've been doing these others. I'll start on E and end on E. So here's a situation where you can start, thinking smart as opposed to thinking hard. The key of E flat minor has 6 flats in it, as we said before. We can only have 7 total flats. So we could basically just assume that all notes within the scale are going to have a flat on it, except for the very last one, F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. B, E, A, D, G, C. Those are going to be all of our flat notes. So basically, instead of looking at all of our notes and trying to select just those 6, just select everything and then hold shift and deselect F, because that's the only note that's not going to be flatted. So we'll pull all these down half step, and we end up with E flat minor, my favorite key to write in. Now let's go to the score editor, and I don't know if it's going to do this right. It may not. Yeah, it didn't. It didn't do it right. So this is a good example. I'm going to right click, go to accidentals, and I'm going to say sharps to flats, because this is a flat key. Remember that rule that I said with written scales? With piano roll, it doesn't matter. But with written scales, you can't have the same note name twice. Like I can't have B flat and B, like here. I have B flat, then B natural, then D flat. What's the note in between B and D? Well, it's C. So this B natural actually needs to be a C flat. So we can right click on this and we can say enharmonic shift flat. And it's underneath the accidentals part here. And there's also one for enharmonic shift sharp. So although what is written here right now, since we changed B natural to C flat, although this is identical in piano roll, having that C flat as a B natural written is actually wrong. Most musicians are going to be able to read it just fine, but if the musician is expecting to see the key of E flat minor and there's a B natural in it, they're going to be confused. Or it may just, they probably won't be that confused if they're a good musician, but they're going to look at it and say, oh, this score wasn't drafted properly. Again, like I said, music theory is steeped in hundreds of years of tradition, and this is just another one of those traditional things. So even if the score is written one way, and the piano roll isn't going to be affected by it. So that's how you can figure out all of your major and minor scales from the circle of fifths. In the next video, we will jump into the 2 altered forms of the minor scale. We'll take a look at the harmonic minor scale as well as the melodic minor scale. But before I go, I want to show you one last thing. You're probably wondering, what the heck is this thing up here? These are the way that you properly write what are called key signatures, or the key of the song. Like I said before, the scale that you use within your song affects what chords are used within the song, which that overall harmony affects what key the song is in. You're not, unless you're working with bitonal music or something, you're not going to use a scale and chords that are in C minor, but the song be in F minor. It's, that would be an example of bitonality, having 2 keys going on at the same time. there is a standard way to write out key signatures, and essentially what the key signatures do, I can show you real quick. Working with our E flat minor scale here, that's a lot of flats to look at, you know. And if you have a whole piece of music with a right hand and a left hand for piano, and there's a lot of fast notes, that's a lot of flats to look at. An alternative to writing the individual accidentals out on your sheet music is to simply define a key signature for the song in advance, and what it does is it takes the place for all of those flats. So watch this, and in DAWs, this is super easy. It takes something that is difficult to learn in traditional music theory and makes it super easy in the DAW world. If I just go up here and I change the key of the entire song from C major to E flat minor, the key of the scale that we just made, what it does is you can see it's replaced all of our flats within the music with 6 flats in the key signature. And if you look at those flats in those lines, look what they are: B, E, A, D, G, C. These 6 flats match the 6 flats of Bijasif, B, E, A, D, G, C, in order. And that's what this is showing. It's just an example of all 7 flats being used. Notice this one has an F on it. This one has an F on it. It's rarely used. Rarely are you going to actually see written music with 7 flats in it. And likewise, if we did something in sharp, if you look at these lines, F, C, just look at like the middle of the sharp is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. If we look at Bijasif backwards, F, C, G, D, A, E, B. So that's all that key signature does. Is it denotes in advance, I'll change it to one with sharps, it denotes in advance what key you're in, and a lot of musicians will look at that and they will know exactly what key the music is in, and they already have an idea in their head of what notes they need to play, because most piano players and most professional musicians have all of their keys and scales memorized. So for example, if you drafted a piece of music for a musician to play and they saw that it had 3 flats in it, they're going to either assume that this is E flat major or C minor. And they will automatically know, because they've studied all of these scales professionally, that those 3 flats are B, E, and A. So they will always, their hands will move toward a position, a key or chord position that has 3 flats in it. And unless the song deviates a bit from those flats, which sometimes it does, they pretty much know what position they need to play in. So this is very helpful for musicians. For songwriters, and especially in electronic music and in pop music production, it's maybe not quite as helpful. And that's why I'm more or less skimming over it, because if I want to add a key signature that way, I can just do it within the DAW. So I'm not going to sit here and make us manually draw in key signatures, which in a normal music theory class I would make my students know every single one of those, and they have to hand draw them in on the staff and learn where each sharp and flat goes. So all right, so like I said, in the next video, we'll talk about the other 2 forms of the minor scale. Someone asked in the comments in another video, when are we going to get to actually like writing some music with this and applying some of this? Well, keep in mind, we're still kind of in the fundamentals. I know it sounds weird, but we've got to get through the other minor scales. We've got to get through basic chord writing, inverting chords, 7th chords. We've got to talk about some different types of intervals. And then we also have to talk about writing diatonic intervals for harmony. Once we get to that point, then we can experiment with some other things like more advanced rhythm, and then we can spend some time, and I plan on doing this, spending several videos just applying some of the knowledge that we've learned from the fundamentals to songwriting and creating a song using what we've learned. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.